Boo Show here. Today I'm going to show you how to change the sway bar, or stabilizer bar as Honda calls it, end bushings and frame bushings on 94 through 97 Accords. Here's how to check your stabilizer bar end bushings for deterioration or wear without jacking up the vehicle. Alright, start the vehicle up, turn the wheel all the way to the right. I'm going to go behind the driver's side tire. And right there's the stabilizer bar. There are the bushings. Zoom in there. You can see they've got a series of cracks on them. All you need is for one of those cracks to open up, and then the bushing will fall out, and every time you hit a bump, you'll get a clunk or a knocking sound. That's a sign that one of your bushings has cracked and fallen off. It's the exact opposite for the other side. Turn the wheel all the way to the left. Same process. Go behind the rear of the passenger side tire. And there are the bushings. You can see they're also pretty badly cracked. Now here's the parts you'll want if you're ordering from Honda. Unfortunately, there's no kit. You have to order the parts separately. You'll want 8 of these donut bushings, 4 on each side. And you'll want 2 of these lock nuts right here. Highly recommended whenever you remove a lock nut in the suspension system, just replace it. And also I have here stabilizer bar to frame bushings. They don't fail quite as often, but they've been supplied to me, so I'll install them. These were the wrong frame bushings for this vehicle, but more on that later. Just want to jack up the vehicle so that the weight is off the tires, but it still has contact with the ground, so you can loosen the lug nuts. Pop a 19mm socket on a breaker bar, break them loose. Now jack the vehicle up the rest of the way and put it on jack stands. Now I can easily spin these nuts off. And now, I can't get the tire loose. But no problem, here's how you take care of that. Get one of the nuts, thread it back on by a few threads, not back on all the way. Go under the vehicle, hit the bottom of the tire with your foot, and it'll pop off. You can also tap on it with a sledgehammer, but make sure you only hit the tire, don't hit the rim. You could throw your wheel out of balance. And only go under there, obviously, if the vehicle is properly supported on jack stands. Left the lug on there so the wheel doesn't go flying off. And right over here, on the lower control arm, you can see the bushings that we're after. Relatively simple setup. You just have a bolt and a nut. The heads are 12mm, so get a combination wrench to hold the nut stationary up top, and loosen it down at the bottom with a 12mm socket. Now the bolt could be difficult to remove due to the tension from the stabilizer bar, so grab it like that and then pull upward, and that'll ease the tension so you can pull the bolt straight out. That'll come straight out. Don't lose it. Screwdriver put in there and give it a few taps. Get this part out. Spacer. So they're bushing out. Got another washer on top. Another. Spacer. Pry out this bushing here. Here's another spacer here. This bushing. Here's how everything goes together. You have 4 washers. You'll notice here, this side of the washer is rounded. That'll always be facing towards the bushing. The other side, you'll see this little lip here. That side will always be facing away from the bushing. So you have bolt, washer, spacer. The bushings are on this spacer. Another washer, spacer, another washer, spacer. The bushings are on this spacer. Then you have the final washer, and that's it. Now this spacer here is absolutely encrusted with old rubber from the bushing, so I'm going to clean this up. You can see just by putting my thumb on it, it just starts flaking off. I'm just going to go to my wire wheel on the grinder. I'm just going to grind all this crud off. After you remove the old hardened rubber on the wire wheel, this is what the spacers will look like. I also cleaned up the threads on the bolt so everything goes together smoothly. Now you'll see on the new bushings, there's a ridge right here. That, you always want it to be facing towards the hole. So it's either facing towards the hole in the stabilizer bar or facing towards the hole in the lower control arm. You don't want the flat side facing there with the other portion facing up. So you want this ridge always sitting in one of these holes. Start off with our bolt and 1 spacer. Slide the bushing on. You'll notice the ridged portion is facing upward. Press it on to the spacer right here. Like that. Insert it. Now the rest of this has to be done with it on the vehicle. I'm going to bring it down. Make sure the ridge for this one's facing downward. Slide it up. Press the bushing onto the spacer. Like that. Then you want that little ridge to seat in the hole here, just like it is. Then you want to drop on your other washer. Remember, make sure the ridged portion is facing outward. Okay. Then you want to drop on your spacer. So what I like to do to make this a little bit easier is get a pry bar, pry up on the sway bar a bit, lift up the jack stand, and release it. By doing it this way, you can easily stack the bushings and release the stabilizer bar onto them when you're done. instead of inserting them from the side, which is much more difficult. My bolt, slide that back up in there. Get the bushing, pop that in there. Pop the spacer through the bushing. Now I can let tension off. Make sure your fingers are clear before releasing the jack stand. You don't want to get them pinched. That's in there. Put the final bushing on top. Put the washer on top. Then put on your new lock nut. Now before you tighten everything down, make sure everything's where it should be. All the washers are facing the proper direction. All the bushings are right. Obviously you want that ridge portion facing in towards the hole. Ridge portion in here, in here, in here, and in here. Then you can just snug up this nut. When you get it right, you'll feel it begin to tighten up, because when everything is clamped down properly, these washers are going to bottom out against the spacer here, and the spacer here. And that's the difference between these and aftermarket ones. Aftermarket ones, you're not going to have that positive feel when everything's been tightened down properly. There's just going to be one spacer here, and you could keep tightening these until these bushings start oozing out the sides. That's why I prefer OE bushings over aftermarket. Same as removal. 12mm up here, 12mm socket down here. Tighten it up. And all of a sudden you'll feel it begin to tighten up. That's when you know you've gone far enough. And there's a good look at the finished product. Now here's how to replace the stabilizer bar to frame bushings. Alright, let's just follow the bar. And we come to one of two bushings. This is what holds the bar to the cross member. There's one on this side, and there's one in an identical position on the passenger side. Just loosen the two 12mm bolts and pull the bracket off. Just pull the bracket off. And the bushing has a slit cut into it, so you could just open it up and remove it. But first push it off to the side, off the cross member. And just open up the slit and remove it. The bushing on the left was the one supplied to me. The larger inner diameter is for an EX Accord with a larger stabilizer bar and won't fit this vehicle. The one on the right is for the smaller diameter stabilizer bar on this LX Accord. Now if you look printed on the bushing, you'll see a number, 27.2. That's the diameter of the stabilizer bar in millimeters. This is from an EX, that's the diameter of the bar, and in this LX, That's the diameter of the bar, 22.2 millimeters. So make sure you get the right bushings. Before you go to take them off, at least on the OEM bushings, check the number. If they're identical, then you'll know they'll fit. Open it up, pop it on, twist it so the flat portion is facing the cross member. Slide it into position.
To make that slide on a bit easier, you could spray a little bit of penetrating oil on the inside of the bushing. Pop the bracket back on.
Now just reinstall the bolts. Just snug them up. No need to over tighten these. Just snug them up like that, and you're done.
Reinstall the tire, tighten the lug nuts as much as you can, lower the vehicle until the tire just touches the ground, and torque the nuts to 80 foot-pounds, alternating from side to side in a crisscross pattern. Repeat the same process to replace the bushings on the other side. That's all there is to it.